Stardew Valley's world building is pretty hobbled together. There's a war happening right now. One of the villagers is literally drafted, but that doesn't affect you at all, or anyone really, except the drafted guy's family. There's magic, but also technology. Really advanced technology like AI, but no cell phones. And it's in the modern Western world, but it's also fantasy. And these two settings do not live in harmony. Witches and wizards unabashedly exist, but people will look at you funny for suggesting you saw something supernatural. There just aren't any connecting threads of logic. Oh well, it's not like you play Stardew for the story. But you kinda do, at least making friends with the villagers and watching these cutscenes and feeling like you have a tangible impact on the world. That's a big draw of the game. And a lot of it just wasn't done well. Stardew Valley is a farming RPG and life sim developed by one man, ConcernedApe, and released in early 2016. Wikipedia calls it one of the greatest games of all time. Angry Birds is on that list too, but I don't have thousands of hours in Angry Birds. Stardew Valley was heavily inspired by Harvest Moon, a pioneer of farming sims released in 1996 for the SNES. So the genre emerged nearly 30 years ago, but through most of that time remained in relative obscurity. But in 2016, Stardew Valley was such a smash hit that it spawned a shit ton of lookalikes. Everyone wanted to throw their hat in the ring of cozy indie farming sims. Despite how much I enjoyed Stardew Valley, none of its competitors interested me. Stardew Valley was the best one, it dominated the scene, so why would I bother with its imitators? Nothing even came close to reaching Stardew's renown. On August 5th, 2024, Fields of Mistria released for early access. Fields of Mistria is a farming RPG and life sim developed by NPC Studio and slated to release in its entirety sometime in 2025. It got a lot of buzz in its first week of early access, so I gave it a shot. It changed me. I've been playing Fields of Mistria nonstop. I'm at the point where I'm running out of early access content, and I realized a big reason why I'm starved for more Mistria is because it's everything Stardew couldn't do for me. It's put into perspective how I really feel about Stardew Valley, past the rose-tinted glasses of my happy memories with Stardew. And here's my conclusion. I don't like Stardew Valley anymore. The character writing in Stardew is my least favorite part of the game. Everyone is an archetype, and while archetypes are useful literary devices that allow characters to lean into the depths of different human experiences rather than try to embody every complexity all on their own, Stardew's archetypes seem to be born out of bare minimum obligation rather than intention. Let me explain. Not much effort is made to explore the facets of humanity that each character represents. The music boy just wants you to listen to his music. The hippie girl just wants to dance for you. It's like the game was just checking off boxes of what a farming sim needs, and once there were characters that could spit out words and blush when you've given them enough gifts, that was that. I'll break down an example. I'll use the music boy from before, Sam. Sam is a romanceable character who plays guitar and forms a band with his friends. He seems serious about his future in music. He plays a live gig and eventually takes a job making children's music. Yep, that's a music boy archetype, all right. Only one question. What kind of music does he like? When you walk in on his band practice, he asks you what genre he should build his band around. He asks you what he should write a song about. Sam's the music guy. Why doesn't he have any of his own opinions or inspirations? Sam does music because that's his thing, but he hardly seems to even like it. This is what I mean when I say that Stardew's characters are meant to check boxes. Sam's character isn't about his own agency or exploring the musical archetype. It's about being the guy with the guitar. You'll find that most Stardew Valley characters are about this deep. The only character story I found to be a real deconstruction was Haley's. She introduces herself as a pretentious mean girl with a latent love for photography, admiring the beauty of nature but only through the camera lens. She sees herself as above the village, but if the farmer cozies up to her and shows her that it's okay to fall in love with a humble life, she feels comfortable enough to explore her curiosities towards nature. Only then does Haley allow herself to physically interact with things that challenge her materialism, and she seems much happier for it. She even takes pictures of herself getting dirty when previously she only stood behind the camera. This is genuinely great character writing. It treats Haley like an individual whose true struggle was overcoming pride, and uses her camera as a metaphor for the boundaries between her desire to explore and her compulsion to be the pretty girl. Comparing this to Stardew's other bachelorettes, there's a stark contrast. Penny's struggle is her alcoholic mom. Abigail's struggle is her overbearing dad. Maru's struggle is her overbearing dad. Emily's struggle is... Actually, she straight up doesn't have one. At least Leah's arc features the hardships of an artist in a capitalist society, but even her story is tied directly to another person's approval of her. And this pattern is exclusive to the female love interests. The bachelors, while not particularly deep themselves, tend to overcome introspective obstacles. Depression, anxiety, the debilitating realization that you peaked in high school. They're not rolling their eyes at a parent or ex like they're teenagers, because the bachelor's stories are about how they interact with the world. The character writing in Stardew is nothing special, but this dichotomy is especially clumsy. In fact, it's sexist. It would be irresponsible to talk about Stardew Valley's writing without discussing how it portrays marginalized people, so let's just rip the band-aid off. There are 2 people of color in the entire town, and they're related. I've already touched on how characters cling so tightly to their archetypes that they feel like they're just checking off boxes of features in the game, but Maru and Demetrius are the worst of them all. Maru and Demetrius are scientists. Maru studying robotics, and Demetrius studying botany. What else is there to say about them? Nothing. They're smart. Their personality is smart. You could call this just another instance of shallow character writing, but there's another character whose intelligence is a key part, but not a limit, of his personality. Dr. Harvey is knowledgeable about health practices and passionate about helping people, but he struggles to follow his own advice. He also loves airplanes. Everything that Maru and Demetrius say can be boiled down to, what would a smart person say? It feels like the writer was nervous about the lack of representation, added 2 people of color, got nervous again about characterizing them in a racist way, so made them the opposite of a black caricature. But because the writer didn't know how else to characterize a black person, he gave both black people the same personality. It's lazy and thoughtless. I don't have a resolution for the racism section, so let's move on. George is an old man who uses a wheelchair. He falls under the archetype of a disabled curmudgeon, someone who's rude, but only because they're bitter about not being as able as others. I shouldn't need to go into detail about how this archetype is harmful to disabled people. But there's a scene in Stardew Valley that is naive at best and mean-spirited at worst. Ignorant no matter what. George is shown struggling to reach the mail in the back of his mailbox. Penny, one of the bachelorettes, enters the scene and notices George's plight. She announces that she will help him, suddenly and cheerfully pushes his wheelchair out of the way and grabs the mail for him. George is angry that Penny pushed him, assumed he needed help, and overall treated him like an object. This is an understandable reaction. If I was having trouble reaching something on a shelf and someone pushed me out of the way to reach it themselves without even asking if I wanted a hand, I'd be pissed too. Penny shrinks back and gives puppy eyes to the player, saying she was just trying to be nice, but George yelled at her for some mysterious reason. The farmer has 3 response options: assure Penny that she was in the right, refuse to get involved, or say, "You should have left him alone. Now he's grumpy." A disgusting way to talk about a person who is right there. No matter what option you pick, George is the one who apologizes, not Penny. This cutscene was received poorly by many disabled players. I wonder why. After players educated ConcernedApe on why this cutscene is offensive and ignorant, he released a patch to fix it. The "now he's grumpy" line has been removed, and the farmer can instead tell Penny that she should have talked to George before putting her hands on his mobility device. However, if you select this new option, you lose a large chunk of friendship points with her, and you don't earn any with George. George still apologizes, no matter what. The messaging does not change. Not only does this cutscene dehumanize a disabled person by saying it's okay to disrespect their opinions and personal space so long as you have good intentions, but also that disabled people should apologize for getting upset at being dehumanized. And you should suffer an in-game penalty for siding with the disabled person. I really want to say this was another bit of clumsy writing, but come on! You went through the trouble of patching the dialogue after people explained why it was bad, but the result doesn't fix anything. ConcernedApe did not understand the problem. We'll see a recurring theme of this throughout the video. An attempt is made to humanize George later when your friendship level with him is high enough. He's shown struggling once again to reach something, and curses his infernal chair, wishing to be able to stand. The player grabs the item for him, again without asking first, and George is grateful this time. George tells the player that he became disabled after a mining accident, and emphasizes that he's not disabled because he's old. He then, oddly, moralizes his disability by saying, "Well, I'll have you know that I'd be sprier than a spring chicken if I hadn't been in that accident," essentially telling the farmer that there's no need to look down on him, because his disability wasn't his fault. This is ConcernedApe's attempt at making George look better, taking every opportunity to paint disability as hell, then trying to make George seem more virtuous by saying disability suddenly happened to him, that he's a victim, not a mean old man who deserves it. That's the last cutscene Stardew has about George and his disability. That's what Stardew believes is the end of that story. That wheelchairs are vile, and you shouldn't judge a disabled person who would otherwise be completely healthy. No commentary on how George's own home is inaccessible to him. No commentary on how abled people should reassess how they treat disabled people. Just another surface-level attempt at a progressive story, with its heart in the right place and its foot in its mouth. I'd like to leave George alone, but Stardew actually pins another form of bigotry to him: homophobia. If you play as a male farmer and marry Alex, George's grandson, George will say, "How can two men get married? It's unnatural." I guess I'm just old-fashioned. Was this really necessary? Like, thanks, Stardew. I really needed that reminder that a lot of people disapprove of gay couples in my cozy farming sim. However, if you have max friendship with George, he will express that he's changed his mind about homophobia because he likes that you're happy. Great! Remember, if you married any man other than Alex and you didn't give him fresh leeks every week, he would still be homophobic. One thing I couldn't fit into the sexism analysis portion earlier is an offhanded dialogue from Alex, who's the village jock. He's tossing around a football and says he would offer to play catch with you, but you don't look the sporty type. If you're a girl, though, he says he would offer to play catch with you if you weren't a girl. Regardless of gender, your response options are to say you're fine just watching, say you do want to play catch, or angrily call out his slight at you. The only good response, the one that nets you friendship points, is to ignore his slight and say you want to play with him. This option pleasantly surprises Alex, and he says he underestimated you, and that makes sense if he said you don't look sporty. But his response takes on a new meaning if he said he wouldn't play with you because you're a girl. If you say, "I'm fine just watching you from a distance," then Alex says, "Yeah, some people just aren't made for sports," which again is fine if he said you don't look the sporty type. But if you're a girl, he's saying, Some people just aren't made for sports. And by some people, I mean women. The game encourages you to shoulder his sexism, and if you instead call him out on it, he just says, "Never mind," and the scene ends. There's no room for growth. The writing in this game has no issue portraying bigotry, but shies away from addressing it constructively. Alex has a stiff view of gender roles, and it shows if you romance him as a male farmer. He tells you he tried really hard not to have gay feelings towards you, but couldn't help himself. Abigail and Sebastian express a similar sentiment, that they never felt drawn to someone of the same gender until meeting you. I've seen some people say that they appreciate the love interest discovering queerness through the farmer, that it feels more intentional than everyone being bisexual. As a bi person myself, I see no problem in everyone being bisexual. Instead, Stardew's love interests are player sexual, meaning their sexuality is whatever a player who romances them wants them to be. This term often describes characters who are only canonically queer if they're romanced by a player who's the same gender as them, but otherwise presumed straight, with plausible deniability. Stardew, however, skips the plausible deniability part. On 3 separate occasions, Stardew takes the time to say, these characters are canonically straight, unless you romance them, gay person. Alex, Sebastian, and Abigail outright say they never experienced same-sex attraction until you court them, meaning if you don't, they just stay straight. I'm sure this is unintentional, but Stardew is telling its queer players that their love interest is only gay because you made them gay. Where have I heard that before? I will acknowledge that Leah has an ex whose gender matches the players, so she is canonically queer even before meeting the female farmer. But of course, if the farmer is male, then so is her ex. Leah's gay history doesn't exist in that timeline. Stardew Valley perpetuates what most games with player sexual love interests do. If you're queer, they've got you covered. If you're straight, it's okay, you don't have to look at the queers, you can keep pretending they don't exist. In essence, Stardew's take on queer love is insecure. The game allows you to be queer, but draws constant attention to the fact that queerness is not normal. It's like when your coworker says, "Psst, I think Pat's gay. Not that there's anything wrong with that." It reeks of heteronormativity. Fields of Mistria is still in early access, so character relationships are capped at 4 hearts, and we don't know the full extent of each love interest story. Still, even with these limits, Mistria has already demonstrated more capable and passionate character writing. There's dialogue between a group of characters who are playing a mystery tabletop RPG. The players all have to figure out who their mystery date is, but the twist is they're all dating the same person. There are 2 women and 2 men playing the game, and they all refer to their mystery date as she. The women even blush when describing her. This is a casual and fun way of showing the love interest comfort in their queerness. Even if the player isn't female, the women explicitly show interest in same-sex relationships. You may notice I said "isn't female" just now. That's because Fields of Mistria doesn't make you pick a gender, just your pronouns. You can use they, them, it, its, she, he, it rules. Stardew Valley doesn't let you be non-binary. That's why a lot of queer players mod it. That and the quality of life mods. In fact, Stardew has a thriving modding community. It's really impressive the kinds of mods people have created for this game that they love so much. One of my favorite Twitch streamers, Ray, said this in his playthrough of Fields of Mistria.
That's cool. There's a lot of quality of life stuff in this. I like the quality of life stuff in this game. Such a good quality of life. One of the quality of life things I love is that villagers' random requests don't expire. This hits. I don't know what makes it so different. It's probably the quality of life stuff. Quality of life. It like took like the most popular mod of Stardew, and it's just like, what if we just put that in our game?
At only 40 minutes into the game, he had no idea how right that statement was. Stardew emphasizes overcoming hardship. To do that, the game has to give you hardship. Maintaining a farm is time-consuming, mining is slow, no one likes you, Fishing starts the hardest it will ever be, and everything is exhausting. After months of scheduling your days down to the second and grinding in every single category of gameplay, you gradually chip away at what used to bog you down. Things suck in the beginning. You work towards making it not suck. It feels good to not worry about things sucking anymore. Mystria goes a totally different route. Instead of flooding your early days with arduous labor to make the later game more satisfying, Mystria takes the weight off your back. It encourages you to not spend all your time investing and grinding, but exploring, talking to people, and tailoring who you are. Here's a list of quality of life mechanics I found that Mystria has over Stardew. Infinite watering can, jumping and swimming, no weekly gift limits, cooking from day one, easier museum tracking, instant tool upgrades, instant barn and coop placement, more accessible furniture, daily stamina regeneration spots, more control over skill trees, no time limit on fetch quests, saving without going to bed! I can't yell, it's late. There's definitely more, but you get the point. Stardew believes you have to suffer first to enjoy life later. Mystria says that's bullshit, you should enjoy yourself all the time. And when all you've known is the philosophy that Stardew follows, it's easy to accept as a simple truth of gaming. Fun has to be earned. But when you're allowed to have fun right off the bat and see that it's just as wonderful, if not more so, you can't go back to Stardew's logic. You start to think, did I really spend hundreds of hours grinding away just to say I did it? Just to tell myself I'm proud to have made it this far? Why couldn't I just have fun like games are supposed to do for you? Why do I have to work so hard to have access to a kitchen? Oh. Stardew Valley is about bootstrap theory. Starting this recording on another day because I got tired last night. I didn't know until me this shit was so tiring. Stardew Valley paints itself as a critique of capitalism. The farmer wants to escape the wage slave lifestyle. Pelican Town is being choked out by an encroaching corporate entity, which you can defeat by tending to the land. But does it really embody anti-capitalism? You still have to grind from sunrise to almost sunrise to achieve the financial freedom to relax. You're constantly worried about wasting time because every second you don't spend working is money lost. And that money could be used for your nuclear family because you can't get married unless you purchase a bigger house. And you can't have children unless you purchase an even bigger house. You can improve the town's infrastructure, but mostly to benefit yourself, and no one else is involved in this process. They just fawn over your generosity. Because without a rich person's donation, Penny's family would still be living in a trailer. After all, the player is only able to escape life as an employee because their grandfather happened to own a large plot of land and left it to them in his will. When you've reached the point of automating petting your animals and having forest spirits happily work your farm for free, Harvey, the town doctor, still dreads his desire for more people to get sick so he can pay his bills. Does Stardew Valley challenge capitalism? Or does it give you the experience of pulling yourself up by the bootstraps and winning under capitalism? I understand what Concerned Ape was going for. It's a valiant effort. Like many areas in Stardew Valley's writing, there's genuine intent to be progressive. And it is, but only on the surface. When you engage with the text, its lack of thoroughness leaves holes that actually reinforce the status quo. If more time and care was put into Stardew Valley's writing, it could have had a much more impactful message. Mystria did put extra time and care into its messaging. And here's how they did it right. Fields of Mistria is socialism at its core. Different people have different strengths that contribute to their society. No one works a grueling 9 to 5. They just do what they do best, and they live happy, fulfilling lives, The inn's kitchen, the blacksmith forge, the mill, and both woodworking benches are available for public use, free of charge. When the game presents an opportunity to upgrade a part of town, Alarie, the town leader, orchestrates the project after meeting with its stakeholders and obtaining consent to rework the area. The player supplies much of the resources, but the labor is performed by many people. Everyone in town chips in to build something that benefits everyone, regardless of profit. Mistria focuses less on the terrors of capitalism and more on the wonders of socialism. This pattern is evident in how the games tackle social problems too. In Stardew, certain characters are explicitly sexist, ableist, homophobic, or otherwise treat queerness as an oddity, but these problems are overcome as the game progresses, loose as that term may be. In Mistria, bigotry is not at all focused on. Instead, gender norms and heteronormativity are challenged through characters just being vocally queer and happy. Non-white characters aren't defined by how they break stereotypes, but they challenge how people of color are often portrayed in media just by being well written. And there's more than two. Mistria doesn't give a spotlight to the ugly parts of society. It outshines them. I know now why Stardew Valley captivated me as a teenager. I was terrified of the world. Everyone told me that high school would be the best years of your life, and if that was true, I was honest to goodness fucked. Does life really not get better after high school? If I survive this, will my only reward be the corporate rat race? This is what I'll look back on fondly? I wanted to be inspired. And Stardew gave me exactly what I wanted to hear. You can leave it all behind one day. You could find yourself in a place where your toiling actually pays off. A place where you can spit in the face of everyone telling you that the world is harsh, because it is, but it doesn't have to be for you. A place where you can win. I wanted the comfort of knowing that the pain in my future would be for a reason. I didn't know that simply easing that pain was even an option. And so the reason I loved Stardew as a teenager is the same reason it bores me now. Pulling yourself up by the bootstraps is a childish way of looking at the world. Most people won't get a dying grandpa leaving his fertile lands to them. And most people won't survive working from 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. without breaks. And if they do, most people won't get rewarded with the luxuries that are easily enjoyed by those born into them. The difference between the two games on a conceptual level is that Stardew Valley wants to challenge the status quo and show that we can defeat it, but fails to understand what defeating the status quo means or what system should replace it. It thinks we shouldn't dismantle our unfair systems or attitudes, just become people who aren't held down by it anymore. Fields of Mistria is about finding joy, love, fun, and comfort in what is decidedly not our status quo, thus allowing the player to come to the natural conclusion that our status quo is both flawed and replaceable. It's an extremely elegant approach to narrative design. It's hopeful, and the more I admire Mistria, the more I resent Stardew. 2016 me would be shocked to hear this, but I'm a Stardew Valley hater now. Or rather, I'm really trying hard not to be. A hater is someone who finds gratification in shitting on something. I'm not trying to shit on Stardew, and I've had so much fun with the game that it hurts a little to talk about the shortcomings. I've been playing since I was 15 with hundreds, if not thousands of hours in vanilla, modded, and multiplayer. I loved Stardew, but I'm 23 now, and I've had a lot of time to think about it. And the truth is that Stardew was a one-man show that exploded in well-earned popularity. It revived a genre of video games single-handedly. Without it, Fields of Mistria as it is would not exist. But video games require a myriad of skills. World building, programming, art, writing, level design, music, sound design, UI design, and all the ironing out in the world. Not to mention the business logistics of bringing a product to the market. Of course, a game mostly made by one person is gonna struggle in one of these areas. And as I've grown older, I found that what I love the most in video games is what Stardew Valley lacks. Thought-provoking storytelling that is woven into and amplified by its game design. That's why I fell hard for Fields of Mistria. If you love Stardew Valley, I guarantee you'll love Fields of Mistria. I'm counting down the days until its full release. And I'll probably never boot up Stardew again. But Fields of Mistria still hasn't put multiplayer on its roadmap. Please don't make me go back to Stardew for multiplayer NPC Studio, I beg you! Hey guys, it's me. I forgot to record this section before changing, so I'm in my PJs. This is gonna be real short. I stream on Twitch. I'll have some text there. Just wanted to say one thing. Thanks. And another thing. Oh, hello! Hello! She loves you. Can you get out of here, Angel? Her name's Pepper. Sorry, I kind of blew in your eyes when I said your name. All right. As long as you're well behaved. I stream on Twitch. Here's my username. There's the URL. Twice a week, usually. This one makes an appearance pretty often. I do talk about game design there. Follow me on Twitch if you want to see more. And follow me here. I mean, subscribe. Can you stand up for them? Can you stand up? Ooh, yay! You're so good.